We're all going to need anti-radiation pills if our leaders in Washington continue going down this path, Michael Snyder reports. Many Americans won't realize that World War III has begun until missiles start raining down on our homeland, but by then it will be way too late. Ever since Joe Biden entered the White House, our relations with both Russia and China have been steadily swirling down the tubes, and it appears that our military could soon be forced to fight wars with both of them simultaneously. Now we know from my comment here, in my humble opinion, from our history repeats itself, and we have to get lessons, what we learned from history. One of the countries, ancient Greece, for example, that had multiple simultaneous wars, that was their downfall. Now, maybe also for ancient Rome. Now, what would be absolutely suicidal? That would be suicidal, having two simultaneous wars, but our leaders don't seem interested in peace. The hotbed in the White House, the hothead in the White House, surrounded by a team of what would be called warmongers. If they stay on the path that they're currently on, millions upon millions of Americans could end up lost. So if you plan to make your voice heard before that happens, now is the time. Now over in Russia, regular television programming was interrupted by a message telling viewers that they needed to take their anti-radiation pills and head to the closest bomb shelters. Russians were warned today to take anti-radiation pills and rush to their nearest nuclear bomb shelters after hackers compromised state television service to broadcast chilling messages. TV and radio programs in Moscow and Sverdlovsk, wherever that is, the region, including Yekaterinburg city, were interrupted with an alarming message telling citizens a missile strike had been conducted on Russian soil. The population was urged to take potassium iodide pills, don gas masks, and protect themselves and to seek shelter. Thankfully, the warning was not real. Hackers were behind it. But the truth is that we are all going to need anti-radiation pills if this madness does not end. Both sides just continue to escalate matters. On Thursday, the Russians hit nuclear Ukrainian cities with the largest missile attack in weeks. The head of Ukraine's armed forces said Russia had fired 81 missiles at Ukrainian territory Thursday morning, including 6 hypersonic missiles, which its air force cannot intercept. The mayor of Kiev, Vitaly Klitschko, said the capital experienced a number of explosions that had damaged energy infrastructure. It's the most recent post on what he said on Telegram. Klitschko, the mayor, said that because of emergency power outages after the missile attack, 40% of the capital's consumers are now without heating. Russia had not used hypersonic Kinzhal missiles since the beginning weeks of the war. These missiles are absolutely devastating because they can fly at speeds that are absolutely mind-blowing. The Kinzhal unveiled by Russian President, the Kinzhal missiles, the hypersonic missiles unveiled by Russian President Vladimir Putin 5 years ago, can accelerate to Mach 4, that's 4 times the speed of sound, and may be capable of speeds of up to Mach 10 with a range of about 1,250 miles. The missile is also believed to be nuclear capable. An even more sophisticated weapon, Russia's avant-garde hypersonic glide vehicle, can fly at speeds as high as Mach 27, according to the Kremlin. Another hypersonic, the Zircon anti-ship missile, has also reportedly been developed, but there are no reports of the Zircon or avant-garde being used in this combat. The U.S. has poured nearly $200 billion into this conflict so far, but the Russians continue to gain more ground. Even with all of the aid we have given them, the Ukrainians are simply outmatched, and at this point even Ukrainian news sources are openly acknowledging the reality of what has been happening in places such as Bakhmut. Quote, the Kiev Independent recently interviewed soldiers on the front line, issuing surprisingly blunt assessment, given its obvious as news source on the Ukrainian side, that Ukrainian soldiers are by and large unprepared, poorly trained battalions being thrown into the front line, meat grinder to survive as best they could, with little support from armored vehicles, mortars, artillery, drones, and tactical information. Would Joe Biden be willing to send his son Hunter to fight there in Bakhmut? If not, then why does he expect Ukrainians to send their kids into an endless slaughter? Now, if politicians on both sides and their families actually had to fight in these wars, they would end really quick. Unfortunately, I believe that things could soon go an entirely new level. Once they lose Bakhmut, the Ukrainians will become very desperate and might end up doing something really stupid. Speaking of stupid, highly respected journalist Seymour Hersh says that the Biden administration's approach to Ukraine is, quote, very scary and very dumb, end quote. And this is what he says. What's going on now in this White House is terrifying to me, Hersh said. Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, and Victoria Nuland, they're just out of their league here. Do they really want to get NATO into a war? There's no question we've been increasing the amount of American troops in Poland secretly and deploying many more arms in that area. I would guess they may push for NATO to make a physical presence. I don't know what the goal is. I don't know if they know what the goal is. I don't know what's going on in that White House, but it's very scary and very dumb, end quote. This is what Hersh said. I will never understand how the United States of America ended up having people like Blinken, Sullivan, and Nuland running our foreign policy. Have we really fallen that far? They are incompetent at the same time, and it's a very dangerous combination. I would not trust them to run a Dairy Queen, but now the fate of humanity is literally in their hands. Earlier today, I was quite alarmed to read that there has been, quote, an increasing presence of Russian submarines off the U.S. coasts. Okay, let me read that again. An increasing presence of Russian submarines off the U.S. coasts, plural, that is, east and west. As Russian President Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine continues to rage, United States commanders and military observers are sounding the alarm about the activity of Russia's submarine fleet thousands of miles away off the U.S. coast. Throughout the war, which began when Putin launched a full-scale invasion of neighboring Ukraine last February, there has been a buildup of Russian Navy forces in the Black Sea. There has also been an increasing presence of Russian submarines off the U.S. coasts, that's east and west, and in the Mediterranean, according to officials. If you have read my latest book, then you already understand why this is such a big deal. Meanwhile, one of the top officials in the Chinese military has publicly stated that it is time to, quote, concentrate our efforts on preparations for war, end quote. Emphasizing Beijing's urgency on Sunday, one of China's two most senior military officers, Zhang Yuxia, called on the People's Liberation Army to concentrate our efforts, he says, on preparations for war. Nearly 73 years old, Zhang remains in his position as one of the very few PLA officers with combat experiences. As the South China Morning Post reports, another senior official called for improvements to the PLA's urban warfare capabilities. Most of Taiwan's population lives in cities. Put simply, Beijing is not messing around. This year's National People's Congress has confirmed a defense spending increase of 7.2% for 2023-2024. If the Chinese did not intend to invade Taiwan, they would have no reason to prepare for war. But the truth is that they know that they are going to invade, and they also know that this will mean war with the United States. Of course, the U.S. military is rapidly preparing for such a conflict as well. The following comes from a very interesting piece in The Economist about U.S. preparations for a war with China. The Marines are training for a war with China, probably precipitated by an invasion of Taiwan. Their base in Okinawa at the southern end of the Japanese archipelago is just 600 kilometers, that's just 370 miles from Taiwan. The two islands are part of what American military planners call the first island chain, a series of archipelagos and islands, big and small, that stretches from Japan to Malaysia, impeding naval passage from China to the Pacific, whether by harrying Chinese ships from a distance or much less likely by deploying to Taiwan to help repel a Chinese landing. the Marines will be early participants in any conflict. That is, the U.S. Marines. Before I end this article, Michael Snyder says, I want to make sure that nobody forgets about the Middle East. War is coming there too, and it's going to be absolutely terrible. Things are so tense in the region right now, and we just witnessed a horrible attack right in the heart of Tel Aviv. This is a time for war and rumors of wars. If our leaders were sane, they would be trying to find peaceful resolutions with both the Russians and the Chinese. But instead, they're drunk with arrogance and power, and they seem to take delight in endlessly provoking both Russia and China. There is not going to be peace, and so you might want to stock up on some anti-radiation pills while you still can. And this is written by Michael Snyder. He says about the author, my name is Michael, and my brand new book entitled End Times is now available on Amazon. In addition to my new book, I've written 6 other books that are available on Amazon, including 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of these books, you help to support the work that I'm doing, and one way that you can really help is by sending copies as gifts to family and friends. Time is short, and I need help getting these warnings into the hands of as many people as possible. I have published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and The Most Important News. And the articles that I publish on those sites are republished on dozens of other prominent websites all over the globe. I always freely and happily allow others to republish my articles on their own websites, but I also ask that they include this about the author section with each article. The material contained in this article is for general information purposes only, and readers should consult licensed professionals before making any legal, business, financial, or health decisions. I encourage you to follow me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and any way that you can share these articles with others is definitely a great help. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, I strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. This is by Michael Snyder on End of the American Dream. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box.